Hey everybody, I was just about to do some grafting here and I thought I would take you along on the journey. I'm doing something a little bit experimental today, mostly in terms of the rootstock that I'm selecting for the scion variety that I'm grafting onto. So I have a couple of extra Meyer lemon clippings from our Meyer lemon plant. Um, it blooms a lot, it produces a lot of fruit. It's a great variety, and we really enjoy the taste of Meyer lemons. And from what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of research on the different types of rootstocks that you can use. I'm not sure on the compatibility of citrandrins like US 942, but I believe there could be some compatibilities with certain citranges. But then again, from what I can tell, a lot of that research is more limited to true lemon varieties, whereas the Meyer lemon is a hybrid between a lemon and an orange, or a lemon and a mandarin. So it does have a bit more mandarin and orange going on, making it probably more compatible with those. But what I have in front of me here is a branch from our Citremon tree, which is a lemon and trifolia orange hybrid. The Citremon is very vigorous, one of our healthiest growers, and on top of that, having those lemon genetics, I think that might make it more compatible as a rootstock for our Meyer lemon. So I don't have any own-rooted Citremon plants at the moment, so what I'm actually going to try is grafting these together and then rooting the cutting after it's been grafted. And now this is a technique you can even see on the Fruit Mentor channel. He's done this with different rootstock and scion wood from the CCPP, and that's definitely a very good channel to learn this from. So we're going to attempt it in our own way here, and ideally I would prefer a little thicker scion wood so I could just chip bud these onto here, and perhaps in the future I'll have the opportunity to show you guys that technique as well. But for today, it's looking like we may have to do some sort of modified side veneer graft in order to make the very skinny scion wood work with the rootstock cuttings that we have here. So we'll get into things here. We should have enough material on this one branch to yield maybe 3 or 4 cuttings. We'll kind of find out right now, because I'm going to look to keep several buds on each of these, probably about 3. So we have 3 on this one, and I'll cut it right there, and that'll be a good size cutting for grafting onto. And for those of you who don't know, Citremon just has beautiful leaves for a rootstock. They're absolutely massive and dark green, really nice plant, but we're going to see how it works as a rootstock too. As pretty as it is, I do want to find out what kind of utility it has in that department. Maybe we'll go 4 buds on this one. And you know what? That actually yields us 3 pretty nice cuttings here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to clip off most of the leaves on these cuttings. What I'm actually going to do, even though we're grafting these, is I'm going to leave one of these leaves, just because from what I've seen and what I've tested myself, cuttings with a leaf on them, and the larger the leaf, if you're able to keep it from drying out, the better, because this is a solar panel for your cutting here. This is going to absorb a lot, well, this is going to produce a lot of energy for your cutting and help expedite the formation of roots. Cuttings, I still have luck with cuttings without leaves, but they do take longer. They don't have quite as much energy. So this is a really good starting size here. We're going to take our Meyer lemon here and just clip off those leaves. Alright, now that leaves us a pretty nice piece here. Now I'm debating whether or not I might just use that as a whole here. I think I'll have the potential to produce maybe 3 of these, which is perfect. I'll use these 2 portions, and then I'll use this portion on this largest cutting here. So basically what we're going to do beforehand is I have pre-cut sections of parafilm here. This is like a nice kind of wax wrap for your cuttings and your grafts. And what's nice about this is it seals in the moisture while also letting it breathe a bit too. And it's flexible and it kind of falls apart after a bit, after a while of your graft kind of growing and expanding. Alright, so we got our piece of, as you can see, that kind of wax film there. It's very stretchy and soft, so you do have to be careful using this not to break it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover that top half here. Just give it some nice spins around. And there we go. This graft I'm performing, by the way, I have done a tutorial with grafting this way onto a seedling, but this is actually my preferred method with the highest success rate that I use on all of the rootstock and trees that I'm going to be selling in this coming spring. So if you're purchasing a tree from us, odds are I've grafted it this way, well, probably in this very spot too. So that is our very nice wrapped scion there. I try not to go too heavy over where the buds are because that's where it's going to break and shoot out. So now we're just going to kind of visualize where we want this. And I'm debating here, now this is what I'm doing in my head, and we'll see how well it actually works out. But I'm thinking I'm going to cut below this top bud here, insert it right there, and then we'll wrap it around. I could, of course, insert it into the top here. But the reason I like going below a bud is sometimes these cuttings die back, especially if there's no bud here. It could die back until the next bud. But this is kind of safe, like a safety for me, where I know nutrition's going to keep flowing to that top bud and from that leaf as long as it's there. So grafting in close proximity but underneath this gives me, some sort of reason that I believe this scion is more likely to succeed in that location. But of course you could do it either way. But we will make a long and probably thin cut along the rootstock here. And we're going to go just along the smooth side here. Probably something like that. So you can see we got that nice long cut. We got a flap there that we can work with. We'll set that down, and now I'm going to find a flat side, just probably this side feels pretty good. A nice flat side where I could get some long cuts off of here. And that's looking great, nice. So you can see we've cut half of that off. And now we're going to try and get the flip side of this and get a nice long cut going the other way. Sometimes what I do if this is a clean surface is I'll put it down, make sure I can't rock it so I know it's on the flat side, and then I'll make my long cuts the other way. And as you can see, we're already getting that nice wedge shape. I'll probably just go one more along that direction there. And very nice. We have a good taper there. You can see it made a sharp point. And I just cut off the very, very tip because some of that, the cambium is almost fully scraped off of. So we're just going to double check our sizing here, and I'm going to make that cut on the rootstock cutting go a little further down just to make sure we get good contact. Now, as you can tell, the scion and the rootstock, the cuts I made, are still different. Even though they're both long cuts, the cut here is wider than the actual width of the scion. So as I'm inserting this in, I'm actually going to skew it across where it's going to be mostly, and if you could see past that big leaf, it's going to be mostly on that one side there, and mostly not on that side, but we're going to skew the top so it's crossing over that way. So it will kind of hit both sides, but it's getting more contact on one than the other. And with that, now we can do our first wrap, where we're going to tightly, and sorry for the leaf spinning, tightly wrap around this. And with parafilm, you kind of learn the amount of tightness you can keep, because if you go too tight, of course, this will simply break. Sometimes I will use a grafting tape afterwards to tighten it even further, but given the softness of the wood that I'm working with here, it's not that hard and I don't want to bruise it or cause any unnecessary damage. So now I'm noticing there's just one portion here that's not covered, and there's also this little groove here between the scion and the rootstock where I am going to want to cover in between this to prevent any moisture from getting inside that graft. So we're actually going to loop it just a couple more times up here. So you can see now that portion is covered. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of stretch and fold this a little bit. And we're going to try and fit it through the top here. If we could get that out of the way, perfect. So you can see I've kind of flossed it in between there. And now I can stretch it around and make that seal. Okay, so with that right there, we have our finished grafted cutting here. So as you can tell, we have the Meyer lemon, which will be growing out of the Citremon rootstock. I expect these to root pretty easily. I've seen Stan McKenzie root his Citremon cuttings with at least seemingly pretty good success too. And seeing how vigorous this is, I think it might actually make a very good and compatible union with the Meyer lemon and end up producing a productive tree. Our Meyer lemon on its own roots, I just find Meyer lemons don't grow as great on their own roots. Once you kind of figure it out, they can, but they're just forever one of our most finicky varieties of citrus, and it's definitely the one we killed the most when we were learning how to take care of these. So I'm trying to experiment with some different graft combinations, and Citremon was just high on the list for things to try. But basically, once this is kind of sitting in our little humidity chamber, we're going to put some rooting hormone, stick this in sand, cover the top so it's going to be in like basically a little shoebox, which I believe I've shown you guys something like that before. And we're just going to wait until we see some growth coming out of that top bud there, which it's very likely it's going to shoot out of here before it does the scion. When it does that, I'm going to break that off. Depending, I may start cutting the leaf back, and hopefully that means this will start healing, and I will encourage the growth coming out of here. So anything coming out of the rootstock, I will trim away until we're getting growth coming out of the scion. And of course, at the same time, this should be rooting as well. And I've done this with figs, for instance, is another one that can be both grafted and rooted at the same time. It's very possible. It can just take a little bit of time and a little bit of management, but sometimes this is actually easier, and it's very easy to just graft these cuttings because they're not, in a pot, and there's not dirt flying everywhere from the roots of the plant. So doing this pre-rooted is actually pretty convenient, and it makes it easier for me to show you these techniques. So I may use this in the future for demonstrating other grafting techniques if I know I'm already going to be grafting those cuttings, which I will be doing some fig grafting in the future, so maybe we'll do a video on that. But if you guys don't know this graft already, or if you appreciate the close-up view and how we do things and how we graft our cuttings if we're doing that, be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've tried this before. But if you do like the video, I'd appreciate that too. And maybe I'll see you next time. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Bye-bye for now.